We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by Cosmom09, Rachel Burt, Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget, ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER. And we're joined by a provisional Survivors tier member, a resident in the Fallout gaming universe, a talented artist, Karina Davey.
Hi.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
And you can find her on Instagram at Karina_D. That's CARINAE_D. We invited Karina on because, let's take a step back. When we were doing The Last of Us, I found it extremely hilarious that Bridget was struggling to keep up with her gameplay for the first few episodes, which is she did. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's because they zoomed through the game, Dave. Don't make it seem like I'm just bad at everything.
No, I was going to clarify that it was a noble effort, and you describing fast playing through the first few episodes, let's just call it that, was A, informative, but B, also kind of hilarious because you're like frantically playing through the game, which is dense and full of fight scenes and stuff like that. And then you come in on episode 3 or 4 and you go, I just gave up. I just watched the playthrough.
I played through. Okay, but I did end up playing through, but they were like, Zoom, just cut out this entire first half of the game.
Exactly.
You're here. You're here.
So, and I don't say that to slag you. I thought it was a very noble effort. I praised you for it. But you made it funny being like, I just can't keep up.
I can't keep up with that.
And these people who do the playthroughs, edit. Just edit this out.
Well, yeah. It was a lot of playing exactly through the entire game.
Yeah.
It's very boring.
And the interesting thing about that game is that because we're primarily a Walking Dead universe podcast, we started here. Our mindset is going to be here. I think all of us had bits and pieces of The Last of Us in our minds as we were watching. We all picked up some details from the internet or seen fan art or otherwise. We generally knew the premise all around. But with this series, Fallout, which is what we're talking about today, well, I didn't say that. We're talking about the pilot from the Amazon Prime series Fallout. Here's my earliest memory of Fallout. It's 1997. I just received this, I'm going to say this, a VCR tape of Interplay's new series of games. And the song that I used in our stories to promote this watch was the song that played as Fallout came out. I don't remember the name of the song, but I'll put it in the screen and probably in the blog for those who are listening to audio podcasts. I just remember that song playing throughout the entire gameplay. And it's just scenes of the game cutting through different cutscenes and load screens and gameplay. And I burned through this VCR tape. I kept playing it over and over again, watching Interplay's series of releases, but particularly Fallout, which is pretty amazing.
What an old nerd.
Yes. And then I taped over it. I used a piece of Scotch tape. And anyway.
That's okay. I wore out a Sega Saturn VCR advertisement that they had sent me because I really, really wanted a Sega Saturn and I never got one. So.
Nerd. Yes, nerds.
Yes.
We're nerds.
100%.
This is my opportunity to turn it over to you, Karina, because you can describe your earliest memories, your experience playing the games.
I started playing Fallout with Fallout 3 because I'm not a computer or PC gamer at all. I'm a console gamer. And Fallout 3 is the first one that came out for consoles. Fallout 1 and 2, I'm familiar with the story because they're very lore heavy and they always call back to those previous stories in all of the games. So you can't not learn about the previous ones. So I've played Fallout 3. That was back in 2008, I think. And then shortly after that, Fallout New Vegas came out, and that's actually my favorite Fallout game. So I played the heck out of that, which is very that Western style feel. I now have Fallout 4, which is the most current one that I play. But there's tons of games out there that I haven't played. Fallout 76 is like a multiplayer online one, and I'm not really like into those, so I haven't played that, but I am familiar with some of the things that go on in that game. And I get hyper fixated on things, so I tend to do so much research and watch tons of videos on lore and stuff like that, and I'm a completionist, and it's almost impossible to do that in a Fallout game because there's so much going on. So I've seen a lot of it. So I've experienced a lot in the wasteland.
On a scale of, let's say, 1 to 5, how do you rank the series of games overall and your relationship with them?
So that's a difficult question, actually, because I have a place in my heart for Bethesda games specifically. They're some of my favorites personally. Are they the best games that I've played? No, they're not. So as much as I love them, there are some games studios that just do certain genres better. I originally started playing Oblivion, which is an Elder Scrolls game, and I'm a huge Elder Scrolls nerd. Is it the best fantasy games? No, The Witcher does it better. Baldur's Gate is amazing. I'm currently obsessed with that. Fallout is very similar to Elder Scrolls and gameplay-wise. It's just set in a post-apocalyptic setting rather than a fantasy setting. It's called Bethesda Jank for a reason. There's lots of glitches that happen in these games, but it has its own charm. Yeah, they're intense. Most of them not game-breaking, but definitely hilarious. But they do definitely hold a special place in my heart. So I would say probably a 4, because I can't give it a full 5 because
4 is pretty high.
Yeah, I love Bethesda games. I love the Fallout series. I love pretty much everything that they do. So yeah, I'm a little bit biased that way.
I'm going to tell Todd Howard that you said that.
Oh, thank you. I'm sure he'll love to hear it.
Now, who is that? I don't know.
I bought Skyrim 4 times, so, you know.
He's the head of Bethesda. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bethesda. Last question. It seems like you learn a lot more of the world, or the world that was, the world that is, as you play through the games, essentially. Yes. Sometimes when you're playing a game, and you really start to get into the story. Did you have that experience?
Definitely, I would say I do, because that's part of the reason I love these types of games so much. They're role-playing games. So you dive into your character, you get to make that character your own, and then you live in the world that you experience. And your level of understanding of that world comes mostly from looking at stuff, reading text, interacting with NPCs and things like that to kind of learn a little bit more about the world that you live in. I definitely get lost in them, which is why it's so easy to spend hundreds of hours playing them. When I first started playing Fallout 3, I wanted to know everything about like what happened, why is the world a mess the way it is, why are these creatures everywhere, how did all this stuff come out to be? So a lot of that you do learn just through playing the game. I have to say the TV series does a really good job of presenting that world to you without ever having to play the games. They definitely explain to you this is a different America than the one that we know from our real history. And they don't go in depth explaining to you or hand feeding you all the ways that it's different. That's what I'm here for. So I can tell you about that.
It was super George Jetson. It was so Jetsons.
It's a retrofuturism. Yes.
It's like a dark telling of the Jetsons, essentially.
I would say that the Jetsons is where the Fallout universe was heading if there was not a nuclear war that kind of stopped everything in its tracks.
That's a great way of saying that.
As I was watching it, I was calling it steampunkalypse, because that's exactly what it was. Part steampunk, part post-apocalypse.
Yes.
When we did our coverage of The Last of Us, that followed the video game storyline closely enough that if you played the video game, pretty much you knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
This is a unique story. This is not a retelling of any plot line from any one of the games. In case someone's like, I really like the story, I'm going to go, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not going to go play it.
A crucial thing to understand about the show.
You're not going to play it.
No, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not going to spoil your gameplay is what you're saying, if you decide.
No. And the story takes place something like 10 years after the end of the most recent game, which is Fallout 4. The storyline. So everything that happens in the games has already happened, and then the story is taking place after the fact. So
that's good to have in mind.
That's really interesting.
I really loved all the game-like moments. When she changed out the knife for the gun and finding the bullets on the table and the Medipack, just injecting yourself and being healed. And I just loved it. Like a little shout out to the gamers. Even though I've never played it, but I've played enough games like that to know. I was like, that's so cute. That is so funny that they put that in there like that.
I have to say one of my favorite parts was when you first meet Lucy, the first thing she does is start listing off all of her stats, because that's what you do when you start a role-playing game, is you build your character and like, okay, so I'm good at repair and science and speech and athletics and rifles, but not that good at rifles. And so
she's clearly good at riflery.
Yeah, she's decently good at riflery. Because if you're not good at guns in a Fallout game, you're in for a bad time. I'm just saying.
You're in for a bad time. Okay.
They need those stat badges from Jumanji where they just tap their chest and their abilities pop up on the screen.
From the new Jumanji.
Her pit boy will tell her that. So she can look at her pit boy and tell her what her health is at, what her radiation level is at, what her special stats are, all that kind of stuff. So that's the pit boy.
And special is an acronym.
It is.
Fallout.
SPECIAL stands for strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. So you can put points into all of those things. So.
Bridget teeing Karina up. That was expert
level podcasting. I told you to play the game a little, Dave. You were like, not good enough.
Not good enough.
Damn it, I have things to say, David.
Fallout Shelter doesn't count.
Shut up! I played Fallout 4, you silent. Dick. Anyway.
Oh! Now she says it.
I literally said it in the chat.
Oh, you know what I'm confusing
me.
with?
It's fine.
I'm confusing with Kira and the countless other people who played the game on their phone.
And they're like, I played Fallout Shelter. I know things. You know
things. You do.
I mean, it's fun.
It is fun.
Just fun.
It's a mobile game. It's like being like, I play Angry Birds, so I can tell you about any game that involves a plane. I know everything. I can fly a plane because I played Angry Birds.
Yeah, I did. I played the Shelter, but I'm not going to pretend like I know anything.
You can't argue with that logic, Dave.
Flawless.
Right. So she's listing her stats.
Yeah.
But I like that it's in terms of the triennial marriage application, right, which you get to see in the form of the wedding dress. It's like every 2 years. So it's like the third year is when the dates are as they go down the wedding dress.
I loved that.
Did you catch that?
I thought that was so cute.
No.
I did. The second time.
Yeah, I could only see 2 dates, so I didn't see enough to notice a pattern.
So we might as well go into the dates. Because
oh, God. Okay.
Oh, are we doing timelines now?
Okay.
Yes.
Let's just get this out of the way.
Are we Westworlding this? Is this like a dual, triple, quadruple timeline type thing where they're all on different planes of time?
I can say no, they're not. They're all existing at the same time.
Okay.
And there's
gotcha.
evidence of that as well. Like why everybody's converging.
I take issues with these years, but continue.
No, let's work backwards. I'll tell you when we are from the top. Starting with Lay's piece of evidence, but it's found in 2 places, is the wedding dress. Stephanie is
the pregnant
Lucy's friend. Exactly.
Yes.
Fork Eye.
Yes.
I called her Fork Eye.
Her name is Fork Eye Pregnant Belly. Excuse me.
Stephanie is my favorite so far.
Right?
She is a badass. Yes.
Stephanie's kind of a badass. Yeah.
Fork in the eye.
She needs to be going with her.
I love her.
Yeah.
She ain't forking around. So Stephanie Harper is her name. The date on her wedding dress is 2294, which makes Lucy 2296. There's another factoid that says what year we're in when you look at the history lesson on the board. Work your way backwards. The history lesson on the board says 1776 is the Declaration of Independence. 1969, this is where it gets wonky. 1969 features a sort of 13 colonies stars with 1 star in the middle. So that makes 14. 1 big star in the middle. Let's put that aside because that makes no sense to somebody who isn't familiar with the games and is something you can't just do and not explain. Although it is the first episode, I'm expecting too much. Next is very important date. 2077 is when the bombs dropped. So when you're watching the earlier scenes, that looks like it's coming from a 1960s or 1950s, late 1950s thing. It's 2077. It's like what Karina was saying. It's like the Jetsons had the bombs not dropped. It is sort of the Jetsons. You even get the tiniest cameo from what we'll probably see later is Matt Berry's character. Yeah, the robot. You barely see in the corner of the screen as the hostess.
He talks.
Yeah, Matt Berry.
Yeah.
And that's Mr. Handy, I think. Is that, did I get that right?
Mr. Handy, yes.
Right. Basically like a server robot, essentially.
Yeah, he's an assistant, a butler kind of robot that's there to help with whatever you need.
He's handy.
He's got a blowtorch and a buzzsaw. I mean, the common household things that you need, obviously.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I'm less mad already.
To make creme brulee.
Exactly.
My first thing was, I was going to say, it was 2077 when the bombs went off. Why does it look like we're in the 50s?
Great question. I have an answer for that as well. So far from the series, I don't know anything about the games, but the news reports mention Anchorage, Alaska. And I was trying to desperately get a definitive summary of the events because I remember that Nikita Khrushchev meets with, I think, President Eisenhower, I think it is, in a summit in Anchorage, Alaska. Nikita Khrushchev was the premier of the Soviet Union at the time, I think it was, or was he the ambassador from Russia? I can't remember exactly which. But the summit does fall apart in Anchorage, Alaska. You're talking about Cold War stuff, essentially. It falls apart. Nuclear war basically ensues. So it's like this future historical revisionist history
It's
thing.
like they're 120 years off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. More or less, yeah.
It's not the Cold War like we experienced the Cold War.
I have plenty that I could add from the game that isn't discussed in the episode. The biggest technology difference between our world and the Fallout world is the microprocessor was never invented. So that's why everything has this sort of vacuum tube, nuclear powered kind of look to it.
Steampunkalypse.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a little bit past steampunk.
Yeah. That's one of the major issues. That's never really discussed in the series at all or explained, but that's a big part of how all of the technology works.
Well, yeah. And I noticed that a lot of the products, like appliances and the 3D projector.
Nuka-Cola.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's two themes then. One is that everything seems to be still American made.
Yes.
More or less, right? Everything's pro-America for a reason. Like you were saying, Sharon D, it's almost as if the Cold War has been going on for so long that it's in everything. It's the sugar bombs. It's the Nuka-Cola. It works for the game because that's what it's all about. It's fallout from nuclear war. But it feels like the show and the game, let's say, it's this thing where when something goes on for this long, something terrifying, and you see this in the episode, they're watching the news report and they kind of like turn it off. It's like, it's the same old, this Cold War's going on forever. No threat of nuclear war.
No, Dave, they're having a party.
So
exactly. She's trying to distract everybody from the
and so it becomes part of the culture.
Yeah, very much. I mean, and you're spot on for talking about it's a prolonged Cold War. They discuss a little bit more about how this war has progressed because there is an actual war. And that date, 2077, is referred to as the Great War. And it's interesting how that plays out.
The greatest war.
The last one, basically.
Oh, the last, yeah.
Yeah.
The war to end all wars because there's no people.
What is just an interesting factoid to me is that the Great War, you always think of in our terms of history, this very prolonged conflict. The Great War in Fallout lasted 3 hours. So that's terrifying.
It's nuclear for you.
By the way, let's say hi to Heather in the audience.
Hi, Heather.
Hi, Heather.
Thank you for joining us. You too can join the audience if you head over to either ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or patreon.com/squawkingdead and just follow. You don't have to tip us. You don't have to join a membership tier. If you follow, you'll get our recording schedules, which aren't posted on social media, so that you can join us in the real-time chat, adding your thoughts to this episode, like Heather's.
I'm satisfied with this timeline stuff because if they were trying to convince me that it was the 1950s, and let's be honest, the music, every single song came from 1959 or before. In my brain, I'm like, okay, that's when this happened. But
Except
I'm like,
for Johnny Cash.
I'm like, the dates. No, Johnny Cash is 59. Right?
Was it really?
It was 59.
I mean, he had a very long career, so.
Yeah. But the songs that played, I Googled them all just to be sure. They had me convinced that these bombs went off in the 50s. And then I saw the dates on the wedding dress. I'm like, this isn't mathing right.
The math isn't mathing.
The math isn't mathing.
The feeling I got was this is what people in the 50s thought the future was going to look like.
That's exactly the case. That retro futurism.
Come to life.
I'm
pretty much.
completely satisfied with that.
If they had the ability to create the things that they dreamt of back then in the 50s, they actually did it in Fallout. So
yeah,
right.
That's what they went with.
And I love that the TV was still black and white too.
Yeah.
Color wasn't even a thought.
Or it's all black and white or just green, shades of green. So
like the terminals, like the Pip Boys.
All the terminals. Yep.
Well, it's so interesting because I feel like some of these inventions were created throughout the apocalypse, let's say, because like you said, that televisions were still in black and white, the Pip Boys in green and a little bit more advanced graphics. But then there's the 3D projector. So there's some advancements. The rest are basically hand-me-downs, something that Lucy says to quote unquote Monty. We don't know if that's his name for real because he's a raider. Can't trust a raider, according to us.
He looks like a Monty.
Sounded like a Monty at first.
He seemed like a Monty.
I'm just saying, compared to all the other guys that were in there, I can see why she was like, okay, I'm all down for this.
They definitely chose him for a reason.
I do love Chet. I won't lie. It's so cute.
But that's her
Chet?
cousin.
Yeah.
I know. But I do love him.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the point that the lady from 33 was making, is that the people they're creating by being in these pods and vaults, they're not inbred, but they're still kind of inbred. They're not peak human physicality, is I guess what I'm saying.
Or mentality.
There is detriment to them being locked underground for 219 years.
Yeah,
Clearly.
eventually you're going to be related to pretty much everybody in there some way or another.
They're in 33. That leads me to believe that there's another 32 out there somewhere.
Or more.
Or more.
That's a good opportunity to talk about this, because the elevator seems to me is a way to get to the, because it seems like there's a vertical, and maybe this is where Fallout Shelter comes in. There's like a vertical, there's a vertical
You do have elevators.
How the vaults are stacked. And so the elevator basically can get you to different floors where vaults are kind of next to each other, essentially.
It also seemed like they just walked down a hall to get to 32, though.
This brings up my
Those are right next to each
question.
other.
This is the question that I wanted to ask.
Okay.
To my knowledge, are there any interconnected vaults other than
In
the
the games?
storyline? Yeah.
No,
Okay.
vaults are very
That's what I thought.
singular.
I thought they were just singular. Yeah.
Yeah, they can house something like between 100 and 300 people typically
Per vault.
per vault. Yeah, but they're never connected. So that was something that was surprising to me, to find out there was a vault connected directly to another one. That's not something I've ever seen in a game.
Which may imply that this was a network of vaults, let's say.
Yeah, possibly.
I would assume, because and Hank, Lucy's father, is from originally from Vault 31.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is on purpose, and whatever it is has made it work so that they can survive for 219 years. But whatever that system is seems to work for them. Everybody keeps themselves in the vaults. They only communicate when it comes time to, first of all, pick a sort of genetic match that won't result in some sort of birth mishap or birth complication, let's say. Which is why there's an application. They send it off to the other vault. Bridget and Karina, you said you were surprised, but was it a pleasant surprise? Or was it just like, I don't like it?
No, it was a pleasant surprise. So like in the games, all the vaults are very different. So you're not getting the same thing with every single one. There's more to that. Seeing one that was interconnected wasn't a outlandish surprise. It didn't make me feel like, oh, this is outside of what the game would do. It's just not something I've seen in any of the games, but it definitely fits in the type of thing that you would see with vaults.
That's why I wanted to ask, because I was like, I don't think I've ever seen or heard, because, you know, obviously I have a husband who also plays Fallout games and would bring up stuff during the episode like, oh, that's from this, that's from this. I didn't ask him. When,
we should have like a Travis Asks segment to see what we think about a certain thing that he thought of.
And
by the way, I think that'd be nice.
He does like PC gaming. So he has played the first one, the second one a little, but predominantly Fallout 4, and New Vegas is also his favorite because arguably it's the best one. But anyway,
it's kind of the best one.
Many have said that.
I am really thankful that they did an original story. That's where you get junked up with this video game adaptation thing.
Something that we spoke about in a previous episode, was it?
Yes. Well, I've said it so many times, but
well, I just want to remind the audience.
The Last of Us was special in that way because it wasn't absolute garbage and it was a video game adaptation, which is rare. I've talked about that before. What we know is like Uwe Boll movies and they're horrible. And he'll punch me because I said it. Anyway, I was just happy that they did an original story because there's something for everyone. You're a brand new viewer. You're not completely like, I don't understand what's happening. They tell it in a way visually that you're able to follow along. There's little nods to things. So if you have played the games, you're like, oh, that's really cool that I get to see that. But they're not trying to just retell a story that's already been told. Because honestly, when you do that, and maybe this was some of my menace about The Last of Us, what's the point? You've already told the story. Why are you telling it again?
Well, and everybody else is behind a, if you know firewall, which is like, why do you want to be behind the 8 ball? Or why are you leaving a whole segment of people watching who want to watch a show? Like, oh, just play the games. What?
Yeah.
To get the significance.
It also leaves it a lot more open-ended. There's no definitive end. You said in the games there's not, because you can keep going and going, but there's no path they have to follow. It's open-ended. They can do whatever they want.
Right. They don't have to follow the comic books in the case of The Walking Dead.
Really? Yeah. Well, and they didn't. But really, really, really smart idea to, I think, to just bring in Bethesda wholeheartedly and have them work on this with them, because that's also where you run into issues is when someone purchases the rights to tell this story and then they just tell some other story. You're either just going to retell the story that already exists in a video game, or you're going to tell some story that literally could have been named anything else.
But the thing you
because
thought
it has nothing to do with what you said it has to do with.
Which does happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I commend that. We have this similar conversation where we talk about Tales of the Walking Dead, not to bring it back to that. But what we liked about it was, I'll speak for myself, and Bridget has said similar things, is that it was just fresh. It was in the universe, but did not have to connect to anything that we knew or any people that we knew. And it was an opportunity to expand the universe with new stories, new anthology style stories.
True.
New characters that we can fall in love with.
That was done well. So I feel like when you compare that to like Blood Rain, horrible.
Exactly. And any Doom adaptation that I think there was more than one, by the way.
There has been, yes.
Doom was a video game, whatever, on the PC originally, and then it turned into something else on consoles, which is good. It's a good, these are all good games, by the way. All the Doom games, whatever. But then, you know, the movies. Ooh. There have been some low budget movies that did really, there's like a low budget Doom movie that was actually, it's all right. It's actually okay. But that aside. And then, of course, we talked about Halo recently, which is a revelation in some senses. It's not perfect, but it's really, really nice. Just like Pablo, the main actor from Halo.
I don't know.
This weirdly, oddly beautiful man with the hugest nose I've ever seen.
He's got a very interesting look.
Yeah, it just follows. He's gorgeous to look at. The show is gorgeous to look at. Anyway, sorry. I don't want to make this about him.
Heather is asking Karina, what was one thing from the game that you were hoping to see in the show?
There was a lot of things. I don't want to give away stuff because later in the season you might see some of these things. But the one that I definitely didn't see was a mini nuke, which is one of the funnest things that you can get in Fallout. They're kind of rare, and they do exactly what you think they do. It's a miniature nuke. And you chuck it hopefully far enough away from yourself to just obliterate everything. It's super fun. And I would love to see that in the series. So I'm sure we will.
I was wondering if Lee Moldaver, right? That's the character, the evil character. We don't know, but she may be good. I don't know yet.
The Raider leader. Yeah.
Yeah, the Raider leader.
The fake overseer of 32. Yeah.
Right. Not Jackson, who sadly passed.
That's probably true.
Right. Well, passed. I think he was forced to pass.
He was probably the guy sitting in the rocking chair.
Fair enough.
Possibly.
I was thinking that too.
Partially. So I was trying to figure out what the point of the explosion was. I don't know what damage it was supposed to do. Was it just to get away? I was just kind of confused by that scene.
I think it was just closing off so they couldn't follow into
it's sort of
32.
Sealed. Not great. It didn't do this in a good way, but it sort of sealed off the entrance to 32 so that they couldn't really follow them.
Oh.
Did it completely close it off? No, but you know, it kind of
slowed them down.
Yeah, discouraged people from
following them directly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I understand. Okay. That's the only thing I had to. But
who
now
is that actress? Because I was looking at her like I know who she is, and it drove me crazy.
You know her from Homeland. She's the wife of Saul Berenson.
That's not what I know her from.
She's that guy.
She's that girl. She's a looker. Why do the evil ones always look really neat? So the conversation that Hank has with Lee, he says, "I think I know who you are," and Lee goes, "Everyone knows who I am. I don't." That's the first thing I thought of. Like, what do you? Why? Now, here's the thing. I assume we'll find out. They gave us a lot, and they didn't give us a lot more, which I'm fine with. And for an episode this dense, it's like, but hold on. I want to know. Answer me this. Will we know why everybody knows about her?
Yeah, it's not like a game thing that you're missing out on. It's the storytelling arc that will be resolved. So
the scary cowboys at the end knew who she was too. They called her the witch.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Who I just want to point out, the ghoul is my favorite character. And I have more to say on this about the three main characters, but he's the perfect type of companion character that your main character would have in the game. So
I see.
Okay. Since we're on the topic of the ghoul, AKA
Cooper Howard.
I need a yes or no answer to this. Are we going to find out why he's over 200 years old and still alive?
This really bothered Rachel.
I'm
Yes and no. I mean, they don't directly talk about it, but yes, they mention that he should not be alive, and he is.
Okay.
So,
but we don't find out why he's still alive. Does it have something to do with the witch?
No, it doesn't.
Is he alive because of the witch? Is it her spells?
Part of it is game related lore. So ghouls are usually they're not mutants. There's a difference. So
Okay.
This is an interesting thing. So that guy calls him a mutant, which is inaccurate because mutants exist in Fallout, but they're different. Ghouls are usually NPC characters. They are regular people who got affected by the radiation. It gave them sort of not an immortality, but an unnatural long life. They regenerate really quickly. They're very hard to kill. And they can go feral, which is why they brought the chicken to see if he would be feral, because feral ghouls are terrifying. They're basically walkers in The Walking Dead, only they're really fast and they'll take a flying leap at you. And they're smart. So they don't use weapons or anything like that. So if you see a ghoul person walking around in Fallout with a gun and doing things that don't look like a zombie would do, then they're probably not feral.
Ooh.
Probably not.
Probably not.
We don't know what I don't know what this series is going to
bring
do
a
yet.
chicken along just in case.
Chickens don't exist in the Fallout games, so that's a creation for the show.
I'm so glad they didn't kill the chicken. Please don't kill the animals. I could deal with everything else.
Yeah.
Kill all the people you want, but leave the animals alone.
No animals, please.
You can show a man impaled by a machete that is tacked against the wall like a thumbtack. Totally
Fork in the eye. That's totally
Fork
cool.
in the eye.
Death by pickles.
Oh my god. I was like, that had to be the most painful. That made my skin crawl.
I was just sad that they ruined all those pickles.
Me too.
What a waste of good pickles.
Did you see the steam coming up out of the pickles? There was like steam coming out. It was
classic
crazy.
Pickle barrel. Hot question though, before we continue. Would you have eaten the pickles after Monty drowned in them?
No,
I don't know. What is my hunger level? How starving am I?
Yeah, it depends on how long I've been wandering the wasteland, because there's definitely worse things that you could eat than bloody pickles.
Here's the thing. The pickling juice kills the germs.
It's like antibacterial, right? The vinegar and the brine.
I'm pretty sure that's science.
It also increased your thirst, so you better make sure you got a lot of water out in the wasteland.
Yeah.
Which is very hard to come by.
So the actress that plays
Lucy or Moldaver?
Moldaver, right.
She is Sarita Chowdhury, and I think I know her from the Hunger Games.
Oh, she was in the Hunger Games. Okay.
And Homeland.
I didn't watch Homeland yet.
I watched Homeland, but I don't remember her from that. I only watched the first season.
It gets different. Anyway.
The dad calls Lucy Sugar Bomb, just like the cereal at the beginning.
Exactly. I did want to bring that up in passing, sure. Yeah, things that outlast, essentially. Yeah.
Do they even know where that came from? Is there old television commercials available that they can watch?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so in the beginning, you'll see that her exercising on those little like couch bikes with her dad, and they're watching a Cooper Howard movie. So yes, they have old television and things like that from before.
Cooper Howard movie. Okay, so this is what I was going to get into next, because it's implied very, very loosely, because it's not obvious. Me even saying this feels like I'm taking a leap, but things like he got my money, called him a pinko, and I'll get to the pinko part later. There's an implication that he is the creator of Vault-Tec, essentially.
I wondered that too because of the thumb thing. Yeah.
And he got my money?
Yeah.
I won't say anything.
Okay. Interesting. So, okay, fine.
I wondered that too.
But one thing that I did notice was the signs. Okay, the signs with the Pip character. It is the Pip character. That's what he's called, right?
So he's referred to as just Vault Boy.
Okay,
Vault Boy. Vault Boy. Yeah.
Yes, with the thumbs up that everybody knows about. But then there's, let me just put it this way. You'll see the signs. I'm probably showing them on the screen right now. But the various signs on the show, things like don't lose your head. But there's occasionally, you'll see things like according to their merit. So there's various little subtle socialist slogans, which is very odd for this world that is very pro-America. It's a very strange thing to see, because typically you'd call a pinko, well, it's okay, then maybe it is not strange. Maybe that's what's great, interesting about this universe. A pinko would be considered somebody that's heavily pro-America, let's say.
Actually, what I was going to say is he blackballed, and that's why he's doing
birthday
cowboy
parties,
kids parties.
So from my understanding, pinko was used as someone who is not quite red, so not quite communist, not quite socialist,
right.
but
which is
right
social.
on the verge.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. He's communist
Sort
light.
of insult. Yeah.
He's diet Dr.
Insult,
Communist.
yeah.
This could be post McCarthy-ish, and he was accused but never actually found guilty or whatever. And that's why he didn't have a job and was out doing kids' birthday parties.
This is why I said what I said, though, just to kind of tack on to what you're saying. And just to say goodbye to Heather, she has to jump off. But
Bye, Heather.
we'll see you when we premiere. It's a very pro-America vault. But even still, there are slogans that are socialist tinge. It's socialist light. So it's even pinker than pink in terms of pinko. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe the people who have been accustomed to the Cold War are actually not anti-American, but they're like, America, whatever. Let me watch TV. Let me watch my shows, cowboys and stuff. I don't know. But maybe there's a reversal of what someone is considered pinko, or I have no idea. But clearly there's a pro-America bent in the vault. There's American flags everywhere. They're talking about the future of America still, even though there's no America to be had. So it's a very interesting, weird, maybe a swap. I don't know. Sorry. Just something I noticed that we may see more of later, but I don't know.
It makes sense that you mentioned that, because when you think about what it would take to live in a vault, you really have to have this sense of community and for everyone working together towards a common goal, and this sort of very American capitalist, profit-heavy kind of world that they live in previous to that doesn't really make sense in a vault environment. So teaching them or helping them to learn to be a little bit more socialist probably worked in their favor to help them survive longer versus everyone for themselves, the strongest or the richest or at the top, that kind of thing.
Who would you trade with if you don't, like you said in the game, the vaults weren't connected, so you would go out to the wasteland to try to trade and all that. You were essentially forced to live in a
commune.
Yeah, exactly. There's no one to trade with. There's no one to compete with, because Vault Tech, if you notice, everything has property of Vault Tech all over it. So
the Atomic Queen,
they own you 100%. There's no competition to be had. So
there's also Monopoly. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So
interesting. American-made Monopoly.
They talk about not opening the vaults at all for any reason, especially not to the outside. When Lucy wants to leave, they immediately shoot her down, like, "Oh no, we're not doing that.
All ideas are good."
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. It's like the polite way of saying no.
Yeah.
It's not
It's a good
happening.
idea.
I love that they say that. There's a guy in the crowd that's like, maybe to you. It's hilarious.
It's the Dave of the audience. It's actually snarky Dave. Norman basically predicts what ends up happening. Says something to the effect of, or he could be a cannibal crammed full of tumors. Oops. And then you see this, you clearly see the scars on the side of his meant to get at his cavity on the side, Monty's cavity, and scars on his back, surgical scars on the right. Or they could have been a little hungry. You only need one kidney to survive, maybe one lung.
Shoot, he's a snack boy. I'd be into it.
By the way, when I saw Monty on the screen, and I thought when Norman said what he
Monty.
said, he's a fruit basket or a fruit cup. He's a fruit cup. He's my little fruit cup.
What?
I was thinking to myself after
so
Norman
weird.
said what he said about him being a tumor-ridden cannibal. I just had this image of somebody on Twitter, a woman, could be a guy, doesn't matter, going, "I'd let him eat me."
I'm sure that was sad.
You know why? Because I've heard people say that about some walkers on The Walking Dead, something to that effect.
Ugh.
Do you know what's an interesting development?
Shut up.
People online are 100% attracted to the ghoul. I've seen so many memes talking about it. I can't get behind it because, for one, he doesn't have a nose, and that's just going to creep me out.
It's
and
weird.
For
Yeah.
two, the ghouls...
I get over it.
No, I don't know. The ghouls in the game are way grosser than the ghoul the show. It's literally melted skin, gargly voice. They're horrible to look at and communicate with. And
I got a very Red Skull vibe.
Yeah, it's a lot smoother and a lot more appealing.
It's just the fact that it's Walton Goggins. That's what's coming through. That's the reason you find him attractive.
You know that he's under all of that, essentially.
Yeah.
With his freaking teeth.
The ghoul's my favorite character, but not because I have the hots for him. It's a very different kind of favoritism.
He's like if they buried John Dory in the Pet Cemetery and he came back as evil.
Yeah, and he came back evil.
Sometimes dead is better. Walton Goggins he's a masterpiece of an actor. I've loved him for many years. He's in Justified, and need I say anything beyond that?
The Shield. Oof.
Yeah, that's the first thing I saw him in was The Shield. He was incredible.
Sons of Anarchy.
But I just have to say, he's not a conventionally attractive man, but there's something about he's got charisma. There's just something about
crazy
him.
eyes.
He's got crazy eyes. His teeth are like too big for his face. I don't know. Like, he's got like a whole thing. But there's something about it that you're like, you have veneers or whatever, but I'm into it for some reason.
He's definitely min-maxing his stats. It's all Riz and nothing else.
Yes.
That's where that comes from. Okay.
You were saying it grossed you out. You didn't have a nose. That is probably part of the reason they decided not to take the nose off of Tyrion in Game of Thrones. Because
that's what it would look like.
In the books, his character had the nose cut off.
This is how many years now in the future from when Game of Thrones came out originally. I just think that like this is it's a really big endeavor for you to post edit a nose out for a whole character for every frame.
Well, and then there's also audience testing too. Because I was just thinking of that.
It reminds me of the original 1980 something Masters of the Universe movie.
I was thinking as well.
They had Skeletor.
Frank Langella.
And I don't remember who played Skeletor, but he chewed the scenery.
Frank Langella.
It's beautiful. Anyway, it's the best part of the entire movie. The movie is not good. Skeletor is
when
amazing.
You're a kid, it's okay.
That was like the best that we could do back then. And it was fairly good for the time. Yeah. But even this still looks a little bit weird. And it might be like the uncanny valley aspect of it that it like doesn't look right. So I'm like trying to fill in. It's not perfect. It's CGI. Like, what are we going to do?
I just love thinking about Walton and Coggins on set with like
just green on his nose,
blue or green paint right here on his face the whole time.
So Walton Goggins with Walton goggles.
You know who Walton Goggins reminds me of endlessly, always? Stephen
Bill Paxton.
Oh well, okay, both.
They have like a similar quality. Vibe. They're not traditionally good-looking guys,
crazy eyes,
but they have this like they just have it.
To dovetail on what you're saying about him, it's that maybe it's just Walton Goggins. And then you know that he's under there. When you look at him, it's like, nah, it's Walton Goggins.
Oh, 100%. That's what it is.
It's not a ghoul.
There's no way that people are like, yes, I want to touch a ghoul's smooth skin. No, you don't. No, you don't.
His personality, it's true what they say. It's the personality, right? I think it's said in this episode, it's the personality that counts. And so you don't really even see it.
I have the same issue with the girl that plays Lucy because every time I look at her, all I can think of is Yellow Jackets. All the time. It distracts me from the show.
She looks a lot like Holly Curran to me.
She looks like a really young Christine Evangelista to me.
Oh yeah, I could see that too.
David mentioned no less than 3 times how much she looks like Shannon Doherty, and
that's
really
what my husband said too.
She does.
Dennis said the same
thing.
You should say who for those who don't know who David is.
So David is my brother. He's the everyday Grimes, and he cosplays as Rick Grimes. So if you've seen very accurate Rick Grimes walking around a convention, that was probably David.
It is criminal how many times I've had to tell people, no, that's not.
Oh my gosh, I know they get so amped.
That's
they're very excited about it, and he's never.
Andrew Lincoln meets with a fan. No, that's David. That's David Thomas.
That's David. He watched it with me, and he's also not a gamer, so I'm sure I was super annoying watching the first episode, just shouting out loud all the things I recognize from the game, like, "Ooh, that's Jet. Ooh, that's a stim pack." Like, like, shut up, Karina. Shut up. And that's when I was making my list of things to like bring up that are Easter eggs. I'm like, well, every single food that they eat, every single song that they play, every single image in that entire thing could be considered an Easter egg, but it's like, it's just because they're doing the world such justice. They're not deviating from it at all. Like literally this feels and looks exactly like the game. So they're doing an incredible job. So I'm really having a hard time separating what's an actual Easter egg. One of the cool things I thought was when Lucy gets into the armory and picks her weapon out, the only thing that's kind of left is the syringe gun. It's called a syringer. It's
I love it.
It's a super fun weapon. It's not the most useful as like your main weapon. So for her to have it, she's definitely at a disadvantage because it doesn't have the stopping power that a regular gun does. But it has a lot of interesting effects. You can create different types of ammo for it that have different effects. You can put people to sleep with it. Like she has strength darts. but it's basically shoots hypodermic needles, so you can shoot people up with all kinds of drugs and whatever your imagination can come up with at a workstation. You can create interesting ammunition for that thing. So I thought that was a cool sort of Easter egg. Like, it's a kind of a rare weapon that you don't see very often. So for them to have it is kind of interesting. Like, why does Vault have a syringer? That seems like something that happens in the Wasteland more than in a Vault.
And a very subtle way of including it too, for those who know.
Also, the weapon that the bounty hunter has at the very end when they introduce the ghoul, you notice he shoots a guy with a baby leg.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that was great.
The ammo is doll parts, essentially.
Well, then it was like scissors and knives and stuff too.
What he's using is called a junk jet.
That's what you were talking about before.
It's essentially, a junk jet that you just put whatever in it and it shoots it. So teddy bears, baby leg parts, like from dolls.
From dolls.
Just random.
You're making me want to go play this game.
It's awesome. It's worth it. At least Fallout Shelter, nothing else. But yeah, a junk jet is kind of another rare weapon for some random bounty hunter to be using that as his number one weapon is kind of silly. It was fun to see. I was glad to see something like that.
And very understated. It's not over the top. It's just kind of, this is a thing.
We don't have to draw too much attention to it. Like,
right?
People
they didn't go into
all
the ingredients and all the different chemicals you can use with a gun. No, just let's use it. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so I had something about the Vault in particular that I wanted to bring up. I guess it just really has to do with the people in this show. Since we were talking about people and what they look like. And I felt like the cast was very specifically curated. This is going to sound so mean. I mean this in the nicest possible way. But for everybody to look a little weird.
Like a little off,
because,
right?
Because
Lucy is...
in the video game, like she has like those huge eyes, and you're like,
bug eyes,
are those CGI? Those are your real eyes? Whoa, girl,
real eyes.
Are you a real person?
It's incredible.
Mascara does wonders.
It's like the create a character kind of thing, where like like they're always gonna look like slightly off, like something isn't quite right. And that's kind of the vibe I got from everybody that was in the Vault. It makes sense because you're in the Vault and you're like breeding generation after generation after generation after generation. But there was just,
you're doing the best
felt like they were very specifically curated to kind of have that look.
Possibly. That's interesting that you mentioned that, because Bethesda games have this reputation for having weird looking NPCs that they just threw them into the character creator and hit randomize and just went with it. Sometimes they do look a little wonky, and it's also a common practice to make, I don't do this, I try to make my characters look as beautiful as possible because that's what I like. It is common for people to make the most hideous monstrosity they can possibly create in the character creator, and to just have this weird looking dude run around the wasteland as your character. So,
it's a thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it was on purpose, but it's an interesting parallel. But
no shade to any actor or actress on the show. I think everybody's great. Everybody is amazing. Again, it's like that uncanny valley. Something is just makes you feel slightly unsettled in a way. There's many reasons for it, right?
Kyle MacLachlan is the king of all this dudes, by the way. Just as an actor, Hank, the dad, we all know him from Twin Peaks and obviously in Portlandia. He's just perfect for, first of all, any role that David Lynch has.
I figured they picked him specifically because he was the star of Dune back in the 80s.
True. Also true. I forgot about that. You're right. Yeah. He just has this weird tack. He's all in for every single one of his characters, just like the characters in the show. He's a little too all in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, what's my character's motivation? Okay, throw all that out. I know the character.
Jared Letoing it on set.
Like a little
so he's
serious.
hipster Jared Leto.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
He did it better. He did it first. And Jared Leto followed, but he's too beautiful. Okay, Kyle MacLachlan, gorgeous, right? But again, he's just a little off. He's just a little off.
I don't know. I don't want people to take that the wrong way. I mean, in the nicest possible way. I really do.
I think it's intentional, though. Between the lighting and, I wanted to mention this before we moved on. I really should have paid a little bit more attention, but this series is filmed in 21:9 widescreen. If you're seeing the black bars a little bit more on the screen, it's because it's filmed almost like a country western, like an old country western on the screen, on the silver screen. But here's what I wanted to notice, and we can maybe look at this moving forward, is that some shows or some movies will do this thing where, and it's intentional, you go from 21:9 instead of 9, let me just say this for reference because you'll know it when I say it, 19 instead of 16:9, right? Which is the full frame widescreen, right? Everybody knows 16:9. So I want to see parts while we watch. You, I'm not even counting you.
Good.
It's not even being mean. I know who you are. That's totally. Some people will know. Most people will know.
Anyone who's ever edited a video knows that it's 16.
Westworld did it.
Yes.
In seasons 1 and 2.
Right.
When the screen was smaller, when the black bars were bigger, they were in the forge, and when the screen was back to regular size, they were in the real world.
Right. It's when they were depicting the real world.
Right.
So when they do it, and I want to see if they do it here as well. So let's pay attention to that moving forward and why that may be. And movies have done this as well. And especially the ones in IMAX, and they almost don't count. They're in this big high resolution 4:3. 4:3 for Rachel is old television did 4:3. Almost a box, but in the IMAX, it's like a super high resolution. It's when you want to give the movie height. Remember, IMAX was all about being able to look up and down on the screen and
My
see
nightmare.
this
Yes.
landscape. Exactly. Let's see if that's intentional. I only noticed it about when Lucy was going to see the venue before the wedding. I was like, wait a minute. Hold on a second. This is filmed in anamorphic widescreen that The Walking Dead has actually been using for Daryl Dixon, A Dead City, and even The Ones Who Live. It's not 16:9. It's something else.
Where was Lucy when she came out of the bunker? I could not.
Santa Monica Pier.
Santa Monica
To Santa
Pier.
Monica Pier. Okay. I couldn't figure out what it said.
Oh, I knew it the second I saw it.
Silas pointed it out. I missed the sign on my first watch. I didn't see the sign.
Oh, there's a sign. Okay.
Well, you see Santa, MON, so Santa Monica.
Right.
Santamon.
But when you see the
It's
demolished
my
pier,
favorite Pokemon.
Silas pointed it out to me.
Let's talk about Maximus. I just want to know, do they not have basketballs?
It's basket brick,
That's
apparently.
right. Yeah, I'm like that
Oh,
gives throwing a brick a whole new meaning, man.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be a bored dude to be throwing bricks in a basket.
Literally a square basket. Oh, that's what they meant.
It's funny. They have basketball hoops in the game. They'll just be around as part of the destroyed cities or whatever. Never seen a basketball. That's probably why they're throwing bricks, is because there's no actual basketballs to throw in.
Which is an expression in basketball, by the way, too. So
Is it? I didn't know that. That's
they're
funny.
shooting bricks. Yeah.
Oh.
Which usually means you miss the hoop, by the way, I think.
The knights are looking for artifacts,
Pre-war.
Mhm.
things. So are they looking for things to put together a weapon, do you think?
The Brotherhood of Steel hoard technology and different factions based on where you are in the country. So the East Coast Brotherhood tends to be a little bit more helpful and willing to share and use those things for the benefit of people. And the West Coast Brotherhood tends to just take it from you for, I don't know why, just because they don't think you should have it. And
So again,
so they
flipped on
just
its
hoard it.
head. Because usually
Yeah.
the East Coast would be mean, right,
yeah,
Bridget?
so
Hey, Lois.
Hi, Lois.
Lois has entered the chat. Oh, sorry. I wish I didn't move on from the wedding scene for a hot sec because it's just a small factoid. When the projector went on fire and then it sort of fizzles out, you can see the please stand by loading screen in the background. If you missed
Yes.
it, it's really quick.
yeah.
And this is very well known for the game. This is the only thing I know about the games. This is
Yeah.
the please stand by
Loading screen.
with the color
Loading
bars.
screen, yeah.
Yeah, it's not color bars, but it's, it's the old. We have to actually explain this because we live in an age where television doesn't end at 11 p.m.
yeah.
or whatever at night.
I remember it from back in the day, but you're right, and they don't do that anymore. So,
And then the airplanes would fly across, and there'd be like an eagle. And then, does anybody remember that?
Oh, right
The
before the
sign
color
off?
bars.
Yeah.
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 Right
Oh.
before the sign off.
They'd play the anthem, and
Mhm.
then the airplanes would fly over, and then then it went to where the TV didn't go off. They would have infomercials on
Yeah.
from 2 in the morning until
To fill the
6.
space for insomniacs. Yeah. So let's explain this fully. So back in the day when we didn't have a billion channels, and if you can believe it, there wasn't 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days a week
24/7.
programming.
24/7.
He's stuck
He's
on
still on the
He's still
screen.
on the
I got it right
ratio.
That is an absurd ratio. And that's probably what the screen is, by the way. But anyway, channels weren't on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At a certain time at night, maybe it could be midnight, whatever it was. It started off at night, and the station itself would sign off, and they would have the standby screen until like 5, 6 in the morning, something to that effect.
It was usually
where
from
the
like 2 to
programming would
4,
come
I
back
feel
on.
like.
Yeah, I think it was even wider than that. But regardless, the standby screen on that channel would come on, and at a certain point, you'd flip the channels. Back in the day, I think there were only 2, like early, and then there were 4, and then there were 7, and then you'd flip the screens and each one would have their own standby screen, basically, until the programming came back early in the morning. I can't believe we had to explain this, but that's the world we live in right now.
It's not a thing anymore.
We do have to explain this. And so that's why it makes sense for this kind of retro-ish show.
Phones were attached to the wall. You couldn't just walk outside with it or drive in your car with it. You had to stand in one place or walk around in a circle as far as your cord would reach.
Extra long cord that would reach to the other room or to the recliner.
Until somebody messed it up and it got so tangled up you couldn't pull it loose anymore. It would just be like one big knot.
When I was in high school, we moved into an old house and there was a rotary phone. So like this is like past the age of rotary phones. We had wireless
touchtone phones.
We had a rotary phone. We had a rotary
Which even
phone.
Me saying that now
and it was this far from the wall. The cord was so short to the wall to the phone. There was no going anywhere.
No. Which that was called pulse dialing because when you got to the 0, it was 10 pulses, 9 was...
Anyway, moving on. We're old.
Yeah.
Just one more thing about while we're talking about the wedding scene or the falling apart of the wedding scene. When the reel breaks, it catches on fire. And we open the episode with the bombs dropping and everything blowing up. And her reality, this sort of 3D printed image of Nebraska or wherever it's supposed to be, is sort of very symbolic that it burns up. And it's almost like her world gets bombed in that moment where everything she knows is falling apart. So I thought that was a very creative, artistic choice to do that.
Well, to dovetail on that, what Cooper says in the beginning and the end of the episode, he says this to his daughter when she's worried about the rule. What, by the way, is a thing. The rule of thumb comes from that. The expression
That's
rule
not
of thumb.
what I learned from the Boondock Saints, but it's fine.
Again, your information from the Boondock Saints is not accurate. Make like a tree and leaf was from Back to the Future.
That's not what he says, Dave. He says, "Let's make like a tree and
make sure you get the hell out of here." I'm sorry, I did it again. Actually, I said the joke right.
Make like a circle and go around.
See, but you have to say it wrong. Make like a circle.
And go.
I don't know how to mess that joke up. Make like a circle and jerk off. Anyway, which, by the
way, is this an Amish reenactment of the Count of Monte Cristo or the weirdest circle jerk I've ever seen?
I've ever been invited to.
Which, by the way, when you look at the Brotherhood of Steel, there's this one dude in the bunkers that's just openly masturbating under the covers.
Yes.
Like, what the?
So awkward.
But then it kind of goes in line with being so casual about cousin stuff, and I get it. I'm not offended by it. It's just noteworthy.
I mean, he's probably in his own bed. Where else is he supposed to go?
He is in full view of everybody else.
They're in a barracks. I don't think they have a lot of choice.
I feel like guys don't care that much, do they?
Yeah, well, I don't. Let's go back to that. But what I wanted to say though was,
I don't want to go back to that.
Cooper. Well, no. We have to do what we have to do. Cooper says to his daughter, "We're like cowboys." The exact thing he says was, "We take it as it comes." He says this to his daughter. This is before the bombs go off. And then he took her and they went. At the end of the episode, he does the same thing when he says his last words to, I forget what the guy's name is, Dom Pedro's guy. He says, "We're cowboys. We take it as it comes. Take it as it comes with his teeth."
Yeah.
So I just thought it was a good bookend. But also there's just this tinge of sadness to it all. He is what he is now as a result of, gosh, I hope not losing his daughter, but obviously losing his daughter, which we get to see in the beginning. There has to be significance to that.
Just like The Last of Us.
This guy has been surviving in this wasteland for 200 years.
Spiting him in spite of himself.
What would that do to a person? How would that change you?
And for what?
So they said that homeboy likes to like dig him up and take parts from him.
And put him back?
Is he like eating him? What is he doing with him?
And did they say, I got your nose and didn't give it back? I've always wanted to use that joke for real.
I thought he would have been like missing some fingers or like an ear. What is he taking from him?
Oh, he might be missing ears.
He might be missing parts you can't see.
Ghouls lose their anything that's sort of like a fleshy appendage, so your ears, your nose. In the games, your lips also come off. Any of that stuff just sort of melts off from the radiation. So, like I said, there's that's the other reason he's more attractive than the ghouls in the game. He has lips. Yeah,
you can't take away Walton Goggins' lips. The better to kiss him with.
Not without a nose.
They're connected to his marvelous teeth.
Oh my gosh.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Look at Bridget. She's like, yeah, baby. She's like, she's muted.
Like, I love your veneers, Walton. I don't know why.
I think they're still perfectly white after 200 years of being a ghoul. Like,
by the way,
still
same commentary we have about The Walking Dead.
The guy that dug him up had some delightfully disgusting teeth. I was glad to see that they were very factual with that.
Yeah.
But only the top ones. Because when he opened his mouth too wide, you could see they did not put anything on the bottom teeth.
Didn't bother with that part.
By the way, they do that with the walkers on The Walking Dead as well. Sometimes you can see the bottom teeth. And it's like, oh, wait, hold on a second. It's perfect bottom set of teeth. It's not zombie-like. I don't like it. I haven't bought in.
I want to talk about Maximus because I love him.
Really?
I love him.
His acting,
I love him. He's great. Okay,
so his acting is fantastic.
It's phenomenal.
He's also a very good-looking guy, but there's something about him. Actually, Travis mentioned this, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since he said it. He said that there's something very Denzel Washington about him. Some quality about the way he carries his emotions in his face and
his facial expression.
Yes. And I was just like, oh yeah, he's like young Denzel. I love this guy.
No, I did not notice that, but now that you said that, as soon as you said it, I was like, his eyes are very
expressive,
emotive, just like Denzel.
Well, he's very physical too with his acting. Cuba Gooding for me, just resemblance wise. But anyway,
I don't see that as much.
Wait, I'll say this. Okay, back in the day, people revered Cuba Gooding at first. He came onto the scene. He was pretty damn good, and later on, he just attached himself.
Yeah.
Well, he attached himself to movies where that got panned, and then he got panned as a result. It's like tying yourself to a sinking ship in a sense. And so
I like Cuba.
It's the same way I feel about the first Iron Man movie. He played the general, and then he was later Terrence Howard. Thank you. I feel the same way about him. He is woefully undercast. He is phenomenal, and it's just sometimes he gets attached to certain projects where he doesn't get to shine, or he gets pigeonholed into certain roles. That's Cuba Gooding too. He's extremely talented, and he's attached to certain things where he's forever that, or it kind of damages his career. It's unfortunate. So I hope I don't see that from Maximus, because I really think he is extremely expressive.
Yeah.
And makes you sympathetic, because right from the bat, he's getting beaten up. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And what is this about?
Who he brought to mind for me was Finn from Star Wars.
Okay, yeah.
Character-wise, the idea that he was taken in by this
John
group.
Boyega? Is that?
John
Boyega.
Yeah.
When he's getting beat up and there's like that scrawny guy with the like really crappy mustache and he's like, kick him or whatever. Okay.
Kick his ass. Right.
He's been in a couple different things, but I know him from Superstore.
Yes, I was going to mention it. Bo from Superstore.
I love him so much in that show. So
Married to
I wanted to mention.
Was that her name?
Because he's
Cheyenne.
Adjacent. Anyway,
edit that out.
Yeah,
he's the one I learned how to do the like right. Yeah, he does it on the show, and I'm like, I'm stealing that.
Bo was great, so I just loved seeing that actor again. I was like, I love you. Don't see you anything.
I want to ask a few questions. Maybe it'll change my perspective on Maximus a little bit.
Okay.
First of all, acting phenomenal. He's doing a killer job at this character. Personally, I'm not digging this character so far.
I don't like him either for some reason.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
Is it intentional? And I think it is.
Okay. Maybe it is. So they're doing a good job there. I want to go on record and say that I do think he put that razor blade in Dane's boot.
I want to believe him too, though, at the same time.
I have no proof. Just something in me is like, yeah, he probably did it. But my question is, why is he offered this spot? Why is he offered to take Dane's place? To me, it doesn't seem like he's necessarily the strongest person in the Brotherhood. He didn't correctly identify the circuit. And like his whole mission is to go out there and collect these things. So you need to know these things. They purposely showed us that he's not super knowledgeable. And yet they offer him to take the place of Dane. I don't understand.
He's been begging for more and not getting
it.
it.
There's one line that he says that led me to believe why he was picked for that. And it's when he's being interrogated and they're like,
which, by the way,
did you do it?
That scene.
terrifying.
Yeah.
To have the power suit behind you, no, thank you.
Speak.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'd have peed my pants.
When he's being interrogated,
little
he says something to the effect of, "I would die. I'll do anything.
I would give my life.
I will give my life for the Brotherhood."
For the Brotherhood.
That's what does it, I think, in my opinion. There is a high level of commitment Whether or not that's going to be viewed as reckless later is up to you, and we'll find out. But he has nothing else that's kind of made clear. They gave him his name.
Mhm.
They gave him a place to live. They gave him purpose. And he's saying, take everything then. To me, that's what did it.
I would say that you're correct in that. There's a line, they explain it a little bit more later, the reason why he was chosen, the reason why this happened. I think you're on the right track with that line of thinking. Yeah, because the Brotherhood does respect devotion and loyalty above a lot else. So as you can tell, they're a little bit culty, you know what I mean? Some more than others. Definitely the TV series is a little bit more leaning into that sort of spiritual or religious aspect of it than you see in the games. A lot of the games that I play occur on the East Coast, which is a different set of, they're not a different faction, but they're a different set of people, and they're a lot more caring, I think, to their squires and their aspirants. You have a different dynamic in the West a little bit. So you're seeing a harsher version of the Brotherhood in this.
Than you would normally.
I
in
was
the games
thinking
even.
of it like a test. It's a trope in movies. I'm going to use Dances with Wolves as an example because that's what comes to mind. Chief Ten Bears is getting ready to send Kicking Bird to meet John Dunbar. He also sends Wind in His Hair, who is against him. He sends the guy who wants to go and make peace, but he also sends the guy who's against him to give him a lesson. So I feel like that's maybe what this was. You haven't shown what we want, so let me put you out there and see if you're going to show it. Some people don't bloom until they're actually under the gun.
He's saying he wants it so badly. He clearly wants to give his life for this. So in a way, he's kind of putting him in the position to do that. If you're not ready, then you will give your life for it. And if you are ready, then you'll prove yourself.
And it's also in contrast to what they must perceive of him, in a sense, because they see he's not getting the circuit right. He's getting beat up. He's constantly on latrine duty. And you can take that and see that as being, oh, he doesn't care. Meanwhile, if you flip it on its head, first of all, he's getting accused of using violence against a brother of the Brotherhood of Steel when he's getting beat up in the first scene.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all. So that was my first thought. When it came time for the Inquisitor scene is what I called it. It's basically what you're able to see at the time, what they're able to see of him. They're up here. These guys, the Knights, I don't know what that guy's name is and what his title is, but whatever. Let's just pretend he has a title. They're only able to see through a pinhole what's happening with all these kids at the ground level. They're looking at all these kids. They're all paying attention in the classroom. So they're thinking, oh, why does he not get it? Why does Maximus not get it? But really, the Inquisitor scene reveals that he's only frustrated because people are overlooking him. They don't really see how invested he really is.
Sure. I would argue, though, there is a point in the episode where, yeah, he doesn't get the circuit right, but they're standing there watching the Knights come up in the power suits. And the guy's like, what model is that? And he's like, it's the T60, as though you should already know that. He is devout. Maybe it's just a level of what actually interests him about the Brotherhood of Steel.
Maybe.
That's just
it's clearly he's being overlooked too, because he's just on constant latrine duty.
Well, yeah.
That's all he seems to get, to the point where he breaks off the toilet seat.
Yeah.
Of clearly.
I love those toilets too.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that clever? I mean, it must be a comfortable seat because of the tires, but it's very gross. Also, for a cult that is into pre-war technology, you think they could have worked something in on the back end too? Like, just like, on the ground level, let's get some plumbing over here. It's just, anyway.
It requires infrastructure, and we don't have that because it all got bombed.
The only thing I'll say is, just to put a fine point on it, for a cult that is seeking out pre-war technology, pre-war tech, whatever it is, just to the point about the plumbing and all that stuff. Like, so what is that for?
So at least in the games, it kind of depends on the faction that you're talking about. He says, the guy that you're talking about, which I don't even know his title, he mentions the runaway from the Enclave has technology that may harm or help the Commonwealth. So they seek out anything that could potentially bring harm to the people. So stuff like mini nukes, power armor, or things like that can be used to harm, and they take it away from people like raiders and wastelanders. Yeah, to avoid worse problems. Yes, and then they also take things that would be helpful, like a vault's water chip, the thing that broke in Lucy's vault after the attack, that creates purified water for them, which would be a very, very helpful technology to have in the wasteland where everything is irradiated. They take those things and they hoard them, at least in the West. In the East, they'll collect for similar reasons. They'll take things out of dangerous technology. Yeah, they take it out of circulation, and they also try to collect things that would be useful or repair things that would be useful to help people. So it just depends on what faction you're talking about, how willing they are to help other people with the technology that they're gathering. And for the most part, they all take the dangerous stuff and use it for themselves, to use violence to control the chaos. So at least in their minds, that's what they're doing. Not everybody considers them the good guys, but I would say they're sort of neutral in that sense, where they're sort of removing negative things.
Like a chaotic
but they're also
good.
they're also sometimes taking away helpful things from communities that could actually benefit from using them.
Karina, would you mind explaining who the Enclave is for everybody?
Yes, so the Enclave is very similar to the Brotherhood of Steel. They're actually the remnants of the U.S. government. The Brotherhood gets a message saying that they're looking for a runaway from the Enclave.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah, so who has some kind of technology that they want. They don't know what it is. Their goal, at least in the games, is to ultimately wipe out everyone who is living in the wasteland so that they can remake America in their eyes as a perfect country. So sort of a Third Reich style, let's remake it the way we want it to be kind of thing. So the Enclave is very much the chaotic or lawful, I don't know, probably chaotic evil entity in the wasteland. So they're nobody's friend.
Yeah. Oh, and then where do the people from the vault come into that vision too?
So yeah, exactly. So in their eyes, the Enclave doesn't care about anyone who's surviving in the wasteland, whether they came from a vault, whether they're part of the Brotherhood, whether they're just a wastelander, a raider. They don't care. They're going to cleanse the country of anything that doesn't suit them.
Oh, this removes a twist that we would see later on.
Yeah. They don't explain the Enclave a lot. That's not something that they're really going to talk about a lot.
That's a season 2 twist.
It's just, well, it's just lore from the game, so it's nice to know.
100% lore from the games. The Enclave is responsible for many of the mutated monstrosities that are in the wasteland.
Okay. So they're just randomly
know all of this
wiping out settlements. Okay.
They're doing stuff that's very questionable, which you'll get to see a little bit of that once they introduce the target that they're looking for. So you'll see that, I believe, in episode 2.
We're going to flip back to the Walking Dead universe, because what a different angle with which to view the CRM from, because you're looking at it and you're like, I get this. I understand this. I don't want to understand this, but it makes utilitarian sense. But then you look at it from a different angle in this show, and it's sort of like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
They're hurting the people I care about also.
Exactly.
But in a way that is very flat, and not flat isn't a bad thing, but just flattening. It just doesn't care. They're shingles. Shingles doesn't care.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Doesn't care.
They're shingles.
Yeah. Yeah, the Enclave is definitely portrayed in the games as like the ultimate big bad. Nobody's friends with the Enclave. Nobody gets along. Anyone who makes a deal with them ends up getting screwed. They're not good guys to deal with.
Rachel has a question.
All right. It's not a real question. We saw the T60 model. I want to know when we're going to see the T800 and the T1000.
Oh my gosh. I fully rescind my support of this question.
Exactly.
A T45, because that was the model previous to the T60. They had a crucial design flaw.
I mean, it's not too far off. In the Terminator movies, things were obliterated and they had to come back and
You're saying in the genre. Okay, fine, gotcha.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the suits or something. Like, no, they're robots. These are people in mech suits.
But they're definitely different.
Yeah, they're people in. Yeah, exactly. But if this is the T60 model, maybe a few hundred years down the road, it can turn into
everything.
I feel like a more appropriate.
We're just like, what is this bitch going on about?
The Terminator.
I feel like a more appropriate parallel to the Terminator situation would be the synths from Fallout 4, because they masquerade as humans,
which we mentioned before the show.
Yeah.
So they said, I am a synth. I cannot confirm nor deny, because I am such a good synth. I don't even know if I'm a synth.
That's very true of synths, because they sometimes don't know that they're synths.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica.
It's also very like Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Replicants.
The literal, replicants. Right. Thank you.
Dave, I figured you were the robot in the house at the beginning.
Mr. Handy.
Can I say that is a huge compliment, because you know what? I feel like Matt Berry is my ideal. As a human being, I want to have his
great.
bat, like his confidence and his intonation, and I
That's
just
how we talk in Tucson, Arizona.
yes. What we do in the shadows? Weren't we going? Oh, okay. Yeah, I was.
So we
Okay.
were talking about synths. Yeah.
Nope. I was actually talking about the technology the Brotherhood were using for faxing. Essentially,
I loved
Yes.
that.
Oh,
I thought that was so
Just-
cool.
like a grid, and it's like a half. Okay, it's like a half circle. It's a half mark here, and then eventually.
No, they
after
were calling
filling
it out like bingo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like this
Yeah.
quadrant here, this quadrant here, and a person is literally penciling in.
It's
To make
It's
the image.
Scantron. It's
Yeah,
Scantron.
Scantron, right?
Yeah.
The Scantrons, the ruled paper. Yeah, exactly. No, not
So it's-
Scantrons with the multiple choice.
Yeah, but it's the same
But-
thing.
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
same thing. It's
Yeah.
the
Oh
same
yeah, you
concept.
bubble in the right one. Yeah.
Right. And then you make a figure out of it. So I thought that was kind of cool.
I also liked the inclusion of the way that they're receiving that. You can hear it's just a series of numbers and letters being called out. When you're scanning through your radio on the Pip-Boy, you can get stations that play the music that you hear, but you'll also come across every once in a while, only in certain areas, you'll pick up these broadcasts that are just numbers and letters and that don't make a lot of sense to your
4,
character. You can't really use
8,
anything for.
15.
Yes. Yeah.
23.
In
42.
7. Yeah. And it'll be like a repeating number sequence or whatever, and it means nothing to your character. You can't use it, but it's one of those little in-game things that you come across that seem nonsensical, but it does have a purpose to somebody else, not to you.
Which, by the way, Sharon D's joke aside, but also notwithstanding, they're depicting Michael Emerson, whom we all know from Lost.
Yes.
Benjamin Linus from Lost.
It was Finch, person of interest.
Oh, bitch, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I'm with Sharon D here. I'm just dragging her into my... right, Sharon D? Well, not even that, because that's wow. You're making me mad. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. I've mixed it. I don't know why I said it like that.
David
Okay.
Smash.
Also,
Tiny
Sharon
Hulk.
D's wearing a green shirt, so it doesn't. I don't have the effect, so it doesn't work. Black shirt, green shirt, 1, 2, 3.
Shandy smash.
So that's now my text tone now. Sharon
And I
D
scared my
Smash.
dog.
It's like a very chill Sharon D Smash, though, right? It's like Sharon
Yes,
D
it is.
Smash this button. Anyway, so I don't know why I said that either. Going back to the Enclave conversation, this is a man who escapes the Enclave, so hopefully good guy. For once, because he's always a bad guy and probably occasionally a good guy. Well, in your show that nobody knows about, he is a good guy.
Person of interest. He was a good guy.
There's a
Nobody
show
knows
last-
about.
That's another canceled show, Bridget. You can put that down.
I'm pretty sure it's on the list already, actually.
I've seen a few of those episodes. I'm not trying to mock you or anything. But like nobody knows him from that. Nobody.
I do.
But you do. But you're, well, I guess you are somebody.
No, I'm not. It's
Come
okay.
on, I'm trying to make up. Anyway.
No, you already said
That's
it.
a weird
Yeah,
way
yeah.
to do it, Dave.
Yeah, well,
I'm trying to make
You
up.
said
you're
it like a
stupid.
question.
Everything you
I
like
said
is
it
You
like
said it like
Benjamin-
a question too.
I said it like Benjamin Linus on Lost.
You were like, I guess you're a
I guess you're
person?
somebody. Yeah.
no, I'm not. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm a figment of your imagination.
Were there other Easter eggs that you had found? Because I found an article that shows every Easter egg from every episode, and I put it in our like chat, and I was like, "Do not
Yeah.
read this.
Yeah.
Do not read this.
Don't read it.
But I need it."
The story does follow, it is a new story. It's not based off of any other game, but it does borrow from other games. The water chip being broken in Lucy's vault, that is directly out of Fallout 1. The main quest of the main character in Fallout 1 is to find a new water chip for their vault so they don't die of thirst. Lucy leaving the vault at the end of the episode is very reminiscent of Fallout 3, where your character leaves the vault against everyone's wishes. You like make an enemy of your whole vault by leaving. And the imagery is very similar too, like this blinding light that comes through. The image of Maximus as a child crawling out of that refrigerator and seeing this Brotherhood of Steel armor when they're asking him, what does it mean to you? Why did you join and everything? That's that image of that power armor in the ruined city is very reminiscent of the opening of Fallout 3. So there are a lot of visual callbacks to the games and slight story threads that they're borrowing from other games without directly retelling that story, which I thought was really cool. The biggest thing that I for sure wanted to mention was like the first thing on my list. This is a good time to bring it up. The three main characters, so Lucy, Maximus, and the Ghoul, represent your three main play styles through the game. So Fallout has a bit of a morality system. It's not super in-depth or complex, but Lucy represents the good morality, who's kind, caring, compassionate. She'll go out of her way to help somebody. She even mentions that in her stats that she values altruism above everything else. The ghoul represents the evil playstyle, where you are willing to do whatever it takes to survive. You don't mind making enemies, which is very clear because he immediately makes an enemy of these bounty hunters who are asking him to help them find this bounty. And he's like, you know what? No, I'll just kill all of you and then do that job anyway, because I can just do it by myself. They're willing to be cruel, careless, whatever it takes to get through and survive. Maximus represents the sort of middle ground, that neutral playthrough where he's not going to go out of his way to be cruel to people, but he's also not going to go out of his way to stick his neck out for anybody else. He's going to get what he needs in the best way that he feels to do it without hurting anyone else if possible.
Which would at best sound like the Brotherhood of the East Coast. Brotherhood of Steel from the East Coast. At worst, sounds like the Brotherhood of the Steel from the West Coast.
Which makes you, bringing back to something Rachel said earlier, where she believes that Maximus did put the razor blades in there, that would call into question his neutrality. These characters are not one-dimensional. They will deviate from what their archetype is, as you'll see in the show moving forward. So it doesn't answer the question of whether or not Maximus actually did that, but it does call into question as you see the kinds of decisions that he makes, not really being super willing to help other people, but definitely willing to help if he can get something in return. It definitely is a neutral play style that I think a lot of players will fall into, because it's dangerous to be super altruistic. It could get you killed, and it's dangerous to make a lot of enemies being super evil too. So I said earlier about the ghoul being a great companion character. In the games, you can travel with companions. Another callback to that is when the image came through of the Enclave defector and his companion, the dog. That's literally your character and your NPC companion, your dog coming with you.
So you can choose your type of companion as well? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
So in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, you can have one companion follow you around, and companions will have different alignments. They'll have different things that they like or dislike. You might get along better with another altruistic companion, or if you're playing more evil, you might not get along with that companion, but you can find somebody who does get along with you. Like the ghoul would be a great companion character for an evil or neutral to evil playthrough. The dog, of course, is dog meat. Not in the show, but in the games, it's known as dog meat.
Its name is dog meat.
Like, that's his name?
That's the dog's name. It's dog meat.
Okay.
Yeah. No, his name is dog meat.
Fictional
it's kind
dog.
of a joke.
Fictional universe.
Yeah, but still, it's kind of a joke where, like, a lot of the meat that you find, so you'll find, like, Brahmin meat or red scorpion meat. And so he's, like, named after this sort of inventory thing that you'll see. So he's dog meat, in the game. But dog meat is the best companion.
Also the best dinner.
No.
No, David.
I mean, he's fresh. He's walking around, he's fresh.
Yeah. I will say in Fallout New Vegas, part of the reason why it's the best one is you could have two companions at once, and they could give you bonuses based on their abilities. So there was one, I don't remember her name, but she was great. So when you had her in your companion group, you could drink alcohol and it would give you all the bonuses and none of the negative effects that alcohol would normally give you, because she was a drunk. So you would have like this great Western Deadeye with you that were just running around the wasteland drunk as a skunk and just reaping all the benefits of that and none of the downsides.
Well, there's also, you mentioned earlier that in that particular game, you can't kill your companions, essentially. Is that...
In 4.
In 4,
you
okay.
can't.
I thought it was that game. Okay.
3 and in New Vegas, your companions can die, and it is a permanent situation. So there's no way to revive them from death.
Not knocked out like Pokemon.
No, it's very, very dead, actually. You'll get a lot of companion options because death is inevitable. So you're not going to be able to save your companion all the time. Fallout 4 handicapped it a little bit, so your companions will become incapacitated, but they won't die.
Oh, like Pokemon.
So the best part about that is dog meat can't die. So there's no reason not to bring him along. So I was always living to just absolute fear that dog meat was going to die because he has this bad habit of just charging into combat. I'm like, there's like 20 raiders in there, dog meat. What are you doing? Like, this is insane.
What's preventing dog meat from doing all the heavy work? Okay, keep going, dog meat. I'll just hang back.
He's a dog and he'll die really quickly when you have people shooting flamethrowers at you.
Just like a real dog will just bolt off like an idiot. Looking at my dog over here, you little...
Uh-oh. The honeymoon's over.
No, I'm pretty sure that's how we ended up with him, because he ran away from whoever had him.
You should call your dog Michael Landon. It sounds like a Highway to Heaven situation. Anyway, resurrecting that one.
Okay, not a Michael
theme.
Landon again. We got almost every Easter egg that I found on this list. We're just missing 3. At the party, when the kids are watching the TV, there's a couple things that pops up. There's a Nuka-Cola ad. There's a Sugar Bombs cereal ad. She changes the channel off of the news to Grognak.
The Barbarian.
Yes. The Barbarian and the Ruby Ruins, which is a Pip-Boy game that you can play in Fallout 4. So
okay. That makes some sense now.
There is, and I don't know how anybody would ever see this, so I'm glad there's this list because I missed it both watches. But when you're looking out at all of the bombs going off in that scene with Cooper Howard and his
when they're on the horse
daughter, there is a billboard in the background that says "Prepare for the Future," which was an advertising slogan originally created by Bethesda for some of Fallout 3's marketing, and it then later appears as a billboard in Fallout 4.
Wow, that's cool.
Norman is playing Atomic Command on his Pip-Boy, which is a playable mini game in Fallout 4.
Is it Atomic Command? I guess. Yeah, I couldn't recall the name. Bombs are raining down from the sky, and you have to shoot them, like
blow them up,
like the Iron Dome or something, something like that.
Everything else we got. We got everything else. There was a lot of stuff. So
there's a couple other little things that I wrote down. There is a comic book, a bobblehead, and a teddy bear in every episode. Teddy bears are just common junk items, but comic books and bobbleheads are very important leveling up things that you can find in the game. So the fact that everybody's walking by not picking these things up is driving me crazy. I'm like, pick it up.
Well, Hank tapped it on the head that one time. So
exactly, like that's not enough. You have to have it on your person anyway.
In your magic satchel, where you can hold a million things, essentially.
Exactly, the bag of holding that everyone has.
The bag of holding. Thank you. To use gamer terms.
Moldaver mentions blight. That's something from Fallout 76. It's like a crop disease that's caused by mutated bats. So that would be interesting that she mentions that. Oh, in the Vault-Tec symbol, like the little circle within a circle with the 3 lines on the outside, that is a vault door. If you didn't know, when Lucy is leaving the vault, that you can see, it's a very clear symbol, like that's the vault door, and it has the 3 lines coming out from the sides. Every Vault-Tec branded thing has that on there, and playing these games for as long as I have, it took me forever to notice that. And I just thought I would point it out.
I don't
know, it's something I thought was cool.
When they open the vault to the outside, you get a big gun thing comes over and like unscrews it and opens it.
Yeah.
Because when we're watching the first episode and they go to open the vault doors between the vaults, that doesn't happen. It just rolls out of the way.
Yeah.
And Travis was like, oh man, I wanted to see the big like gun thing like come and unscrew it because that's what it does in the game.
Hydraulic arm.
Right.
It's a heavier door to the outside, I guess, would be the reason for that. It needs more. At least in Fallout Shelter, you can upgrade that thing and it makes your entrance harder to get into. So when you get raided.
True.
Note to self, buy gun things who close the door harder.
Well, I've already upgraded.
Door.
I'm already upgraded.
Gun thing.
Make it take longer for waiters to get in.
Okay, I do want to mention what Lois said. I saw it, and I apologize because Lois is gone now. So she said, I wonder why they dropped the whole season. It's suspicious to me. And at first, in my head, I was like, Lois, what the hell are you talking about? They release stuff like this all the time. That's kind of a good
question.
But then I was like, wait, they don't typically do that on Prime. They usually do like a week-to-week drop.
For these kinds of series.
This is unusual that they dropped it all at once. So I hadn't thought about it until she said it. It's not suspicious to me. Maybe there was a fear that it wouldn't do well, because much like with any video game adaptation, there was a lot of talk online about like, I'm not going to watch this. It's going to be garbage.
A lot of people have low expectations for video game adaptations. I think they did an amazing job with this. As a fan of the games, I'm 100% recommending it for people who have played the games or who haven't, because you can still enjoy it without knowing anything about the series. It's a whole new story of its own, and it, like I said before, it does a great job of explaining this world to you in a way that makes sense and giving you the information as it's processable, I should say. Do we have all the answers at the end of the first episode? No, you're not going to. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. And I will say, I texted the phone number that appears in one of the commercials that is in a later episode, and it teases something, and I don't know what it means, but it is interesting. They suggest that 33 weeks from now we'll have maybe something happen. I don't know. So
Well, let's get to that when we get to that episode. Is it how far into the watch is it? Which episode do you?
I don't remember because I kind of binged them all really quickly, so they kind of bled together, and I even forgot when the end of the first episode was. So. I mean, I didn't do it all in one night. I tried to spread it out, but it was so good that I was like, well, obviously I have to watch 3 episodes today because I gotta. But yeah, it happens later on. There's a commercial that you can see that has a phone number, and if you text it or you call it, you'll get a little something. So you should do that.
Oh, this is like a Better Call Saul. If we call
Gene
Takovic, when he was that character and looking for his dog Nippy, we actually got the audio and we put it in the blog of what you're supposed to hear, but that number kept getting pinged. They disconnected it. But we got the audio in the end, finally, in time for the blog. It's a 2-minute long outgoing message from Gene Takovic saying, oh, he's this really adorable dog. It just goes on this thing. And if you haven't, please call this number. So remember to keep that coffee hot. And if you like what you heard, head over to ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead. Leave 5 stars in an eggplant.
That's all we need to know that you love us. Tell us what you like.
What you didn't like.
Tell us what you didn't like.
But remember to tell us after every episode. And if you really like what we're doing, consider tipping us on Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/squawkingdead, or joining a membership tier on either Ko-fi or Patreon. If you can't afford to tip, or you're having that commitment phobia and you can't join a membership tier, again, please consider following, because when you do, you'll get our recording schedules, which are free to attend. It's free to follow, and that's all we care about. We want you here in the real-time chat so that you can lend your thoughts.
It's $1. Come on.
$2. We have had some membership drop-offs over the last year or so. We could use a little bit more of your support. I don't like to pressure anybody. Really, it's not my style. I insist on following. But you're right, Bridget. We should mention that our cash flow situation is okay.
Well, hey,
but
here's the other thing, though. If you join the Whispers tier, you get a free t-shirt. What are you doing, you schmo? Just sign up.
After 3 months, you do get a free t-shirt. And if you join the Survivors tier, which is the ability, like Karina, although we got her on for free because that's how we play. We make the rules up.
Thanks.
You can join us.
Rat yourself out.
Could have left that out.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know. We could have just left that out.
Transparency.
You guys are getting paid?
If you join the Survivors tier, you get to join us in any episode breakdown that you like through our Discord. And your t-shirt will come in that much faster, because Whispers tier members have to wait 3 months. You don't have to wait at all. I thought this was a lovely and informative, dense episode of laughter and joy. And I've been your host, David Cameo. And I was joined by Cosmom09, Rachel Birch, Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget, Quizzical Bridget.
Who's making so weird?
Reach at ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBREOASETER. And of course, special thanks to Karina for a very dense, teasy, lovely, informative companion to this.
And I'm hoping she's going to be here throughout this whole thing. Yes,
I don't know.
I hope she's
we made it so long.
Now.
Are you sure?
Can't wait to talk more about this thing that I love.
Yes.
Well,
yes,
I'm for it. I love it.
It's very.
Bridget's like me.
It's very
I'll give up all my
informative
speaking parts just so Karina can be here.
I don't want to talk over anybody about it or go off on too much of a tangent because I will do
That's
that
not,
if given a chance.
Not possible.
I thought it was great.
None of us know what that is like.
What we can do now as complete idiots is Karina can list off facts and we can go, stupid joke, dumb joke. Sorry, that was just me. I'm throwing you all in with me right now.
My jokes are great.
I'm just here for the comic relief.
I keep asking. I don't know why I'm here. I
Stop
just show
it.
up,
Shut
and you
up.
haven't, and you guys haven't kicked me off yet.
Shut up! Shut your face!
And with that, everybody, with that very not nice comment to herself, because it's apparently the months between March and June where she gets this way. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week with the second episode of the series Fallout. Bye, everybody.
I'm not doing anything. I know. Normally I do saying. I couldn't come up with anything.